And in the race for governor, candidates are exploring creative strategies and benefiting from massive spending as they try to get the edge on their rivals in the race's final days. The heat is especially intense for Republican John Cox and Democrat Antonio Villaraigosa. Polls show the pair are in a tough fight to be the second of two slots in that general election ballot. Democrat Gavin Newsom is the undisputed frontrunner at this time and is expected to advance. Now, Phil and I asked former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown if Newsom is gaming the system to get the Republican of his choice as a running mate.
Not really, not gaming the system. He's doing exactly what we candidates always do, and that is we try to make sure the contrast between my candidacy and your candidacy is dramatically demonstrated. That's what Newsom is doing.
Wait a minute, are you translation saying you're trying to say you're going to pick the person that has the least chance of winning? And if he gets a Republican in there, it's almost guaranteed that Democratic Blue California is going to vote blue.
Well, I would think you would want the person who's running against you to be clearly a symbol of your opposition, and you a symbol of your friends and relatives. That's what he's doing.
Well, AKA gaming the system. I mean,
that's not gaming the system. That's a practicality.
Which is to game. This is, look, the top two primaries is requiring a whole new set of rules that everybody is sort of learning and fleshing out right now. And so, look, this may be the new normal where you're trying to get more candidates in to dilute your opponent's votes, or you're trying to get everybody to gather around a particular opponent. I think that this is going to be the new normal. We're just seeing the beginning.
Mayor Brown, the whole point of the top two system, as envisioned by Arnold Schwarzenegger and the people that backed it, was to move towards moderation or get to the middle. Instead, what we're seeing in this case is a move by the Democrats to try to push it to an extreme.
Keep in mind, Phil, California local government has always been that way. There was never a partisanship in any agencies of local government. I ran for mayor, not as a Democrat. I ran as Willie Brown, the best candidate. And believe me, I only wanted somebody who was lesser.
Well, and I think, though, that parties will adapt to this over time. I mean, they're just trying new strategies out and trying to figure out how to do this best. So I think that, while parties hate it, we do know that a lot of folks in California, the biggest, fastest growing group right now is decline to state. And that means these are a lot of people who don't like the parties, even if they may identify with one or the other. So I think the more the parties say we hate this, the more a lot of people in California are saying this is great.
Do you think it's a good system, this top
No, I think it's a terrible system. Believe me, I believe that we ought to go back to the partisanship and allow, however, people who decline the state to participate in whichever party they want to participate with for vote purposes, period. I do not think it is productive to say there shouldn't be a Republican and a Democrat running, or an independent. Just think about it. American Independent Party and all those other parties, they are non-existent when it comes to the final count because they've been eliminated in the primary. And I don't think that's healthy for the system. I like the idea of multiples.
Meanwhile, we're having a recall election for a Superior Court judge in Santa Clara County. So Phil and I asked former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, is this good for the system?
Not good for the system at all. Judges really need to be independent and able to make a judgment based on what they hear, all of the evidence, all of the circumstances, and what the implication will be for whatever decision they make. Politicians make decisions on the basis of their survival. Judges should not be burdened that way.
But judges, I mean, the reason why we have this system is because we need to be able to hold judges accountable for extreme acts of misconduct or actions that are just so outside the realm of what their local constituency thinks is appropriate. And so while this is one, I don't see it necessarily being, 1,000. But folks who are in favor of this recall say this is exactly why we have elections, so that when people do something so extraordinary, we can rein them in.
But the elections ought to be yes or no on the judge when he comes up or she comes up. If there is misconduct, we have a judicial disciplinary process. As a matter of fact, I've actually appointed people to that disciplinary process. You hear whether or not a judge has done what you said, Melissa. You hear evidence. You go through all that process.
So what are you saying? It's not a recall, just when they come up for re-election, you turn them out.
Absolutely, just as you did with, you recall, 3 Supreme Court justices, when they came up for approval, the voters said, the conservative voters said in the 80s, we don't want you anymore. That's one thing. But to say your judgment and your individual decision could cost you your job, you got to go out and try to raise money. I've got to contribute to somebody who's trying to save their job. That's bad news for the judicial system. The system ought to be where integrity becomes the standard, period.
And yet it looks like the judge is probably going to be recalled. If you believe the polls that we've seen, there are a lot of undecided folks, maybe about 15% undecided, but it doesn't look great for the judge right now.
I don't think any judge could win on a recall because I don't think any judge is capable of campaigning to survive.